Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the College of Practical Homeopathy's live webinar. We have quite a few people in the room. It's almost 8 o'clock. We will be waiting a few more minutes for everybody to settle in and log in. As you come into the room, you will see there's a little chat box at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to say hi and tell us where you're from, and yeah, just generally chat to us. We will be starting in 3 minutes. I'm just going to give everybody a chance to settle in and make sure that they've got their mics. We've got quite a big audience tonight. Obviously a very topical subject. We have a few people already saying hi. Hi from Canterbury. Hi, Suzanne. Anna from Italy. Anna, hope you're doing okay in Italy. Have you guys been released yet? Where in Italy are you? Hi, James from Somerset. Oh, good evening. Scally from the UK. Hi from Portugal, Cork. Hi, Ursula. Qatar, Egypt, Spain. Oh, we've got lots of people coming in. Ireland, Australia, Dublin. We've got lots and lots of people. Keep saying hi, keep telling us where you're from. Hope this, whoever is in quarantine and in lockdown, I hope this gives you a bit of entertainment and information and encourages everybody to stay safe. Hi, Maki from London. Surrey. Suna, hi Suna from Surrey. Pleasure. Anna's saying thank you in advance for this lovely topic. Great, thanks Anna. Hi from Denmark, North Devon. Got quite a few people entering the room. For those who've only just entered, we're going to be starting in 2 minutes. I'm just giving everybody the chance to settle in and say hi, tell us where you're from. Oh, we've got somebody from Ontario in Canada. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Just a bit of housekeeping for tonight. My name is Tanya and I am a homeopath and the tech support for the college, and I will be hosting this. Som Jandu will be talking about homeopathy and the coronavirus. He is one of our lecturers and the director at the college, and he will be talking for 25 to 30 minutes on coronavirus. And then towards the end, you guys will have 30 minutes to ask questions and he'll answer them. All in all, the session will be an hour long. And hopefully you'll get what you need from the session. There's a Q&A box. Feel free to type in any questions as we go along. And at the end, I will go through that question box with Som and we will answer as many questions as we can. If you have any other questions in the meantime, feel free to pop it all in the chat. Always make sure you share to all panelists and attendees so everybody can see what you're saying. And it is now 3 minutes past, so I'm going to be handing over to Som and he's going to do a short introduction on himself and then he's going to take it away. Hi Som, are you there?
Yes, hi Tanya. Thank you very much.
All right, over to you.
Thank you, Tanya, and good evening, good morning, and good night from all over the world for where you are. And first of all, thank you very, very much for joining us today. And we know we have a wide audience today, so our thoughts and prayers firstly go out to everybody confused, suffering, and just curious about what's going on in the world. Hopefully we'll get some clarity today and go through this together. And I'm assuming there's going to be quite a few questions and answers, so we'll try and keep the educational part shorter and get our teeth into it. Yes, I'm a member of the College of Practical Homeopathy, qualified homeopath as well, and I have a background in pharmacy, pharmacology, immunology, and toxicology. And it's my pleasure to work with many of our students and postgrads around the world as well. So thank you. We get right into it now. As Tanya said, please do put any questions you have and we'll try our best to answer all of them where we can. And where we can't, we'll endeavor to get answers back to you as an update to this, where you can view later on as well. Right, without further to go, coronavirus, COVID-19, what's it all about? What we're going to go through in this short time today, we'll go through the basics and build upon knowledge and experience as we go. So we'll start with the difference between bacteria and viruses. We'll understand about the coronavirus and this COVID-19 name. We'll look through some of the symptoms that we're experiencing. And if anybody actually knows anybody in particular who they have as a friend, family member, or a patient with coronavirus, please do share with us, because we hear about it on the news. Let's see if we actually have people who are experiencing it firsthand. That's a learn for us all. Then we'll put this whole crisis into perspective, into the history of the world, other conditions like SARS and Zika, etc., and see where we stand. It will give us some rationale. Then we'll look at how the viruses are infecting us, what our bodies are doing to fight a virus when we get infected, the things that we can do every day to boost our immune systems and help ourselves. There's a lot of this that we actually teach in our courses. I'm not going to be a salesman here, but when we teach our homeopathy courses at the College of Practical Homeopathy, alongside it, we teach nutrition, herbs, vitamins, minerals, etc. So it's a very integrated, practical, hands-on course that we do. Then we're going to look at homeopathy and how it's helped people with pandemics throughout history. And then we're going to try one method of how we might approach this current situation right now and see where we go from there, okay? This is something that we must all remember with any form of healthcare, that if there was no healing power in the body would not heal. When we're little, we fall over, we cut ourselves, our skin heals. I'm a man, if I shave every day and nick myself on my chin, my skin will heal. So we know there's something inside us that enables us to repair itself. Bones heal after breaking and fracturing, etc., etc. We've also seen things like tumors and cancers reverse, as many of you will have done. So we know that there's healing power inside. That's what homeopathy taps into and restores us back to health. Going straight into bacteria and viruses, bacteria are actually living organisms, single-celled organisms that can survive totally on their own. And they can go in and they can survive without humans, they can survive in the atmosphere, etc., etc. So when we get them though, they cause infections such as strep throat, tuberculosis, urinary tract infections, etc., etc. And we treat them with antibiotics, etc. Viruses are 10 to 100 times smaller, but they're not actually living elements, which is why viruses can survive through things such as ice and transport, etc. But they're like hijackers. They need living hosts, such as animal, plants, or people, to survive. We'll go into how they do that afterwards. Without that, they can't. So that helps us to understand this context of self-isolation, social distancing, that all our governments are telling us and advising us to do, because if we can handle it ourselves with the power of our self-healing and kill the bugs, and we don't go out, then they cannot infect anybody else. That's the theory behind it. We're going to try and stay away from any political and socio-economic comments that the world and the governments are making, because every hour things are changing. We're going to focus purely on the health and medical side. Viruses cause things such as chickenpox, shingles, AIDS, the common colds, etc. And more importantly, some of the big ones listed below, which we'll get into now. On a scale of things, just how big or small viruses are, if we start at the left, we can see the atom. We move along and we can see the flu virus. It was a conversation I had with my brother yesterday, actually. We talked about flu, and he goes, why is it called flu? And I said, it's a shortened version of the name influenza. He just laughed. He goes, he's not a medic, he's a finance guy. And he said, that's interesting to note because sometimes we forget that. So flu actually means from the influenza virus. And it's a tiny fragment of DNA wrapped in a shell, which we'll cover later. Alongside, you can see the size of a bacterium and something inside our cells called a mitochondrion, which is the powerhouse. And if we move further along, we can see the size relative to our own human cells. So therefore, we can see just from a size alone that viruses will go inside our cells and do things, which we'll cover later. Bacteria will fight our cells 1-to-1, or as what our body will do, 10-to-1, as part of our immune system. So that's the difference. Viruses will actually enter our cells, but bacteria will not enter the cell. They'll attack our cells from the outside. Moving on to corona and COVID. Now, as many of you will know, coronavirus is a family of viruses and they affect the respiratory tract. We have other different types of viruses. One you may all be familiar with is the human papillomavirus, HPV, often causing cold sores or genital warts, etc., etc. But the coronavirus, as the 3 or 4 that we've got listed here, they're quite well known. SARS, as we know, stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. MERS was something very similar, but again, it originated in the Middle East. And now we have COVID-19, which is actually known as SARS-CoV-2, because it's a version of SARS, albeit a little bit more infectious. It's called COVID-19 because it was actually discovered in 2019, the back end of last year, not just in January, February. That's when it started to gain momentum. It has an incubation period of 1 to 14 days. Now that's quite important, which is why the governments are saying self-isolate for that period of time, because that's the time it takes for the virus to replicate inside our body. It's also the time our body will then fight it back and heal. Please note these points as well. And as we know from all the news channels all over the world, 80% of people recover spontaneously. That means our body will actually deal with it and we won't even know we've had it. So now that they've started doing around the world is trying to look at coronavirus testing to look at antibodies. So that tells us that our bodies will actually make antibodies when they discover this virus and heal ourselves. Some of us will be weaker and actually fall ill, and less than only 5% of us will become seriously ill, requiring either hospitalization or death. And a lot of that depends on our own healing ability and the integrity and how well our immune system works. To put things into perspective here, now, before the last couple of months, if we had cough or a sneeze, we just thought it's a cough or a sneeze. For example, for the last 2 days, I've been coughing and people are looking at me funny, but it's because I've been talking for 8 to 10 hours a day with students and patients non-stop about things like this. So let's not be too paranoid every time somebody coughs, but that's a quick visual there to help us distinguish between colds, flus, and the coronavirus. Something about the coronavirus which is unique is the shortness of breath. Not the kind of shortness we get after walking upstairs or just being a little bit overweight. But if we feel feverish, and we're having struggle breathing, then there's a chance we might have coronavirus. Otherwise, it's just a flu, just an infection, no big deal. So we need to add some perspective to it as well. Let's put this into perspective. This is some historic data going back through the ages, where we have some major epidemics and pandemics that have traveled the globe and killed many, many people. And if we look back at the turn of the century and back 150 years, people dying in the millions. The reason for that is up until a couple of 100 years ago, people were not traveling the globe, so they were not cross-infected or introducing localized viruses to other countries. So people were falling ill until the immune system built up and you no longer suffer from it. As we got into this turn of this century, people are getting well. It's not through the advent of antivirals and antibiotics and things like this. It's that our immune systems are getting better because over the last 200 years, people are traveling to other countries and building up that foreign immunity within ourselves. That's something to keep in perspective. And then if we look down at the deaths, that helps us to put things into perspective as well. There's nearly 8 billion people on the planet, and we've only had about 8,000 deaths. That doesn't diminish it, but in the scale of massive epidemics, it puts it into perspective. Now let's put a bit more perspective country by country. I know we have some people online today from these countries as well, so welcome. The thing I want to focus on is not the actual numbers of the cases, because that will be largely population driven as well. China is the most populous country on earth. It's going to have a lot of cases. But look towards the right-hand side of the column and look at the percentages of the fatality rate. It averages to less than 5%. That tells us that 95% of the people are actually okay, suffer a little bit, and get well. So that stops us being really frightened by the media and being paranoid, which we'll cover later. Further putting this into perspective in the grand scheme of deaths, there's a website called worldmeters.info. We'll send a link later, where this has a live update second by second, and these numbers change every second that you look at it. So I just took a screenshot earlier today as we were preparing the slides. And these are the other types of deaths in the world. And when we look down this list, the 8,000 deaths by this virus alone pale in comparison to all the other deaths that we can see right there. If I start right at the bottom, there's nearly 300,000 road traffic accidents around the world. 250,000 suicides, for example. So when we look at that, it just helps us to keep a bit of a reality check, because the worst thing at the moment, we talk to everybody, we fear it, we talk about it on the news, it's everywhere on social media. We seem to think that this is the biggest, scariest thing in the universe right now. It's not. Now let's go on and see how viruses infect us. So on the left-hand side, we've got the structure of a virus. And you've probably seen this plastered all over the news. It's a little non-living organism. If you look right inside it, it's a tiny little bit of RNA, which forms a part of DNA, our genetic code. And it's covered in this shell with lots of different proteins. These proteins are very important for us and for it, because if it goes onto the right-hand picture, onto our cell, the proteins help it to attach to our cell membrane, come inside our cell, if you look at the right-hand side. And once it comes inside and enters our cells, it opens up and the RNA goes into the nucleus of our cell, and it hijacks the mechanism and it makes our cell produce more new viral cells, and out they pop out the other end. So the virus has a need to have these proteins on the outside. But nature is wonderful, because what it does at the same time, the proteins help our body recognize it before it hits the cell. And that triggers off our immune system. So our immune system can latch onto the same very proteins and try and eat it, blow it up, kill it, poison it, or get rid of it in one way, shape, or another before it enters our cells. So Mother Nature gives us the cure and the antidote in one. So it actually helps us. It's not something to be afraid of. The way we fight a virus once it comes inside us, we create antigens. Now, these are what I like to call them antibody generators, because when we have a foreign body, we say it's an antigen. It makes our body recognize it and say, I don't recognize this. I better start creating proteins and tell my white blood cells how to fight it. So that stimulates our white blood cells to make antibodies, the body protectors, to fight it before it does us harm. And there's various types of these. We have B and T lymphocytes. We have macrophages, which simply says they eat a lot. They're big cells that literally gobble up other cells and bugs and bacteria and viruses. We have natural killer cells and a whole side of other things that our body has. Our immune system is actually created in our bone marrow. That's where the immature white blood cells are made. Then they go around to the rest of our lymph system, the spleen, lymph, thymus, appendix, and tonsils. So our body stores them in various parts in our body. So at the site of infection, it can release them to help us. The spleen is a major organ for our immune system. The lymph system is the transport system for it. But more specifically for coronavirus, the thymus gland, which is in the middle of our chest, where your sternum or breastbone is, it sits there. It's a massive lymph junction, so to speak. So right where SARS might affect us is really close to us. It's close to our heart, our lungs, and our major organs that's needed. And it can release the white blood cells to us right there at the site. So one of the things we also say in the natural world is we try not to have too many operations to have things like appendix and tonsils and spleen taken out, because these are our body's natural defense mechanism. Very, very important to us. And people who are passing away with this illness right now, if you read the news, we are told they were ill previously or immunocompromised. So it's not this virus that's dangerous to us, it's that we are not properly able to protect ourselves against it. So what can we do to boost the immune system? There's a number of things, and we list some very simple things that we can do every day in our lives here. Some of the top line is there as our kitchen staples: garlic, ginger, cinnamon. You can make them in your tea, in your food. They boost your immune system. Honey kills things as soon as it goes down into your respiratory tract. So does lemon. Echinacea and holy basil are key herbs that are pretty much available anywhere in the world. Taken over a long period of time, they help to nourish the spleen. They encourage the spleen to produce more white blood cells. So very, very good herbs that we can use every day. A lot of people are rushing to shops, not only for toilet paper, but also for their vitamins and minerals, not knowing what they're buying or why. So let's go through some of the 3 or 4 that I recommend to my patients. One, we start with vitamin A. It's hugely important in our immune system. And I always tell people, think A for antibodies. That's what I tell them. And if people are going to ask questions, there's a brand we have in the UK made by Solgar. And there's 2 types of vitamin A. One is retinol, and the other is beta carotene. Beta carotene is a precursor, it's more bioavailable to the body, and it can convert it to what it needs. And beta carotene is a group of carotenoids. There's alpha carotene, etc., etc. And I recommend people take something like 47 micrograms a day to give them the protection. Vitamin A is fat soluble, so the body can store it in its fat cells. Moving on to vitamin C, we shouldn't have to discuss why vitamin C is important for so many reasons. Anti-cancer, immune boosting, antioxidant, etc., etc. But it's the dose. In the UK, the recommended dose is 82 milligrams a day. That won't cover you. We suggest anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day if you're infected. It will make a huge difference to health. Vitamin D, most of the world doesn't get enough vitamin D. It's the sunshine vitamin. It also boosts the immune system. Vitamin D is also fat soluble. Vitamin C, however, is water soluble. So that means we can't store it. We use what we need and the body excretes the rest in the water. So vitamin C is better taken in pulses throughout the day, not in one great big whopping dose. Whereas vitamin A and D, the body can store and hold on to it. Alongside that, we've got a very important metal here called zinc. Zinc boosts the immune system. For men, it's very good for the brain and for the sperm, but it's very important with vitamin C. And what zinc does, it goes inside the cell and helps our mitochondria beat the RNA that comes in from the virus. So it has a very important metabolic role in our immune system. And magnesium is one of the most important minerals we can take. It's responsible for over 300 chemical reactions in our body, but more importantly for this, it's a cofactor in immunoglobulin G synthesis. The immunoglobulins are part of our inflammatory system and our immune system, and they actually stop the inflammatory pathway. Now, one of the symptoms of coronavirus is lung inflammation, which causes hard and difficult breathing. So when we think of the inflammatory pathways, we know that magnesium is going to be important. Probiotics, we can get them as supplements, or we can get them in things like yogurt, kefir, etc., kimchi. Various countries will have your own. They actually stimulate and they make antibodies. 80% of our immune system lives in our gut. So when we take antibiotics, which means against life, antibiotic life, we need a probiotic to help nourish the gut flora back. So if we're in a state of ill health, probiotics are going to be very, very important to take. Omega-3s, there's two types. Specifically two types, there's other types as well, but the ones that help the inflammatory pathways, they work in conjunction with magnesium and with vitamin D to reduce the inflammatory pathways in our body. They help to reduce things called prostaglandins. They take a cascade to the cyclooxygenase system, which causes a lot of inflammation everywhere in the body. Other things we can do is to support our lungs, and there's some two great herbs here. One is called lematium. It doesn't only help the lungs, support the lungs, it also helps to boost the immune system. I take that myself, especially in the last few months, because I'm coming in contact with lots and lots of people. And Lobelia inflata does what it says. It inflates the lobes, and the lobes are the lungs. Lobelia inflata is the genus name for Indian tobacco. That's the herb. And these can be taken as a herbal tincture. To support the spleen and the lymph system, we can give ceanothus, which is another great herbal tincture. We can also give it in homeopathic potency, and we can actually give the lymph sarcode back, the lymph gland back as a sarcode, which will help to stimulate the body and tell the body how to work should it forget. And the homeopaths in our group will understand exactly what that means. Homeopathy and pandemics, I've listed one example here. At the bottom of this slide, you'll see a link to a whole list of other pandemics for the ones who want to research it. Get your facts there. It's actually listed for you. And there's journals all over the world on it. But one of the most famous was the Spanish flu. It actually originated in China, but the Chinese workers went across to Spain, and so it was known as the Spanish flu. But the death rate was 20 to 50 million at a time when the world population was only 2 billion. So that was quite severe. People were moving different countries. They didn't have the acquired immunity, as we said, and so people were literally dropping like flies. People were treated allopathically by drugs and by aspirin and by quinine, which were the leading drugs in those days, and the death rate there was 30%. The homeopaths at the time, and remember, 100 years ago, homeopathy was the leading system of medicine in the world, bigger than Chinese medicine and bigger than Ayurvedic. Even today, it's the second most popular form of medicine worldwide. And countries like India, it's the number one. In many countries in Europe, 40 to 50% of GPs are qualified homeopaths as well. And when the homeopaths were treated, they had a mortality rate of 1%. That's worth noticing. So do the research yourselves, and it will surprise you, and it might encourage you to inquire more about homeopathy. Then they created a word then called the genus epidemicus. Genus epidemicus is a name given to almost one remedy that can actually beat the epidemic as a whole. And they used it for this Spanish flu to create this word. And that's based on the collected signs and symptoms of the entire population. So if I've got a cough, somebody else has difficulty breathing, somebody else has a fever, and there's another 10,000 or 20,000 of us, they're the collective signs and symptoms, like we got with coronavirus. Cough, fever, feeling weak, inflamed lungs, difficulty breathing. These are the collective signs. And the remedy at the time was gelsemium. And then where gelsemium worked and didn't work and patients had other symptoms which were not covered, they used bryonia. In essence, that was the only two to save so many lives when 20 to 50 million people were dying. That's the power of effective homeopathy when the right remedy is chosen according to the symptoms. Now, if we take that today, what we've just talked about, to the current situation right now, what are we facing? Everywhere we go, on the news, we talk to our friends, everyone is talking about a fear of impending illness, which could lead to our death. We're all worried, we're scared. Because we're worried and scared, and because the governments are telling us they have no cure, we're even more worried. And we think that if the government can't help us and our local NHS or our healthcare systems in the world do not have the medicine, we're doomed. That leads to a feeling of being helpless. Then we panic. And we've seen the behaviors around the world. This is just psychology because we don't seem to have another alternative. So our role as homeopaths is to say there is another alternative. There is so much you can do. Do not fear. But the feelings of helpless lead to us feeling exaggerated anxiety. We're not just anxious. We're acting irrationally because of that anxiety. We're stocking up on food like it's World War III. Somebody coughs walking down the street, if we're outside of our houses, that is, if we haven't isolated, we look at them like they're an alien. That's not normal social behavior. Our friends become our enemies. We don't hug our relatives. We've got Mother's Day coming up in the UK. People are worried. This is not normal behavior. And we're worried about infection, disease, and death. It's all around us. We're even scared of dying from a fever or a cough. This is normal. A cough is a way of the body expelling things that are irritating the airways. That's what a cough actually is. It doesn't mean we're ill. It means our body is doing what it's supposed to do. When we have a fever, our body raises our temperature to burn off the cells. It's another form of healing. It doesn't mean things are going wrong. So when we're told by the mass media that if you have a fever temperature over 38.7 or 37.8, beg your pardon, come and see somebody or lock yourself away. Why? The body is doing what it's supposed to do. It's got immune cells to attack. It can raise the temperature to burn. And when it's dealt with it, the temperature will come back down. That is the body doing what it's doing with its innate healing power. Then with this, we hear words like influenza and pneumonia. I've had no end of phone calls in the last couple of months just about these words alone. So people are scared about anybody who's had this before. People may or may not have had flu jabs, a whole different topic on vaccines we'll do another time, but people are paranoid that anything to do with the lungs, anything to do with difficulty breathing, oh my God, I'm going to die. That's the situation we have at the moment. People are forgetting about COPD, bronchitis, asthma. We have hay fever season coming up. So there'll be many, many more people coughing, sneezing, just because the pollen. Not because people are cutting the lawns, but because the plants are not worried about coronavirus. They will pollinate. The winds will blow. It will be in the air. But because everyone's in a frightened situation, it's going to lead to anarchy. Now, as homeopaths, we take words like this and then we repertoire for them. So I've given an example here. It's not a panacea, but I will comment on it in the next slide. So if we take these and put onto a repertoirization, we start from the top and work our way down. Let's just look at the context first. We've got people who have fears in their mind. Starts in the mind. Fears of impending death. When we're stressed, it lowers our immune system. So this is a pathway has already started to us being ill. We have phobias of death. We have helplessness. We've just talked about all of these. We have anxiety. You can see it there. Then we're worried about the lungs as a general organ. They're going to get affected. So these are all the words that I've been hearing for the last few months. And if I repertoire for them, these are the remedies that come up. And our Arsenicum album has a high rubric count, has a high score rating, along with phosphorus. These are major, major lung breathing remedies. Now, a few months ago, the government of India, who are very, very big on homeopathic medicine, as well as Ayurvedic, they've got a council called the Ayush Council, AYUSH. They issue their guidance to their population to say if people are worried about contracting coronavirus, they can take Arsenicum album 30C. There's a reason they would have said that, because they will have done a similar representation to this and say this is the state of people at the moment. That does not mean that this will cure coronavirus if you get it. But right now, very few people have it, but people are afraid of having it. So this remedy suits the remedy picture currently. If people then progress to having things like fevers or aches and pains, there are other remedies that come out, such as Gelsemium, Eupatorium perforatum, Bryonia, and many, many others. And they are very tailored specific. So for the audience who are not homeopaths and you're worried and you think that there's something you can do, look back through the slides and see what you can do in your own home with the herbs, the food, and the supplements you can take to help yourself and your loved ones. If you're really worried, please talk to your local homeopaths. Find them. If you can't find them, log onto our website. We have a team of homeopaths at the College of Practical Homeopathy, and I'm sure someone will be able to help you. There's lots of guidance, there's lots of things you can do. Do not be afraid, feel empowered. And I think that is the end of my talk. Happy to take any questions if anybody has any.
Hi, Som.
Hi, Tanya.
Thank you very much. So for those of you that would like to ask some questions, fire away. You will see the questions going up in the Q&A section. If you'd like to vote on them or give it a thumbs up, then that pushes that question to the top of the list. So feel free. And you guys can also answer on those questions if you like. But I'm just going to start off with one question. I live in the Caribbean. Do I still need vitamin D, or would I get sufficient from sunlight?
Hi, Tanya, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep, perfect. Okay, very good question. If you're a native in the Caribbean and you're used to that weather, you do not need vitamin C. You get it naturally. Your skin will make more vitamin C that you need in 20 minutes of sunlight if you live in a hot country, and that's all you'll need for the day. However, if you then go to another country and live or reside there for a period of time, then you will need vitamin D. So thank you for asking that question. Very good to note.
We have another one. What are your current thoughts on vaccine developments and their happenings?
Okay, I'll share that two sides. Being from a pharmaceutical background and knowing about pharmacy and pharmacology, I'll comment. But we are going to have a webinar series as part of our Wednesday webinar series on vaccination soon, so watch this space. Currently, for the people that are looking to help from their governments and their healthcare systems, it's very, very important. We have different healthcare systems. Not every system will cure everybody, and not every system is suitable for everybody. So for the people that want to go down the allopathic route, it's nice for us to know that the governments are doing what they can to help people who need that support with weakened immune systems. We're in the healthcare industry. We don't really care how they get well, just let them be well. So if the governments are doing that, good, may they carry on. But what do we do in the meantime while we're waiting? That's what this talk is all about. So we fully support them if that's the route they want to choose. If you want to know our personal thoughts as homeopaths, we will have an upcoming webinar on that very, very soon. Thank you for asking.
Somebody's asked, is there an article that compares COVID-19 with seasonal flu?
Yes, there is. You can do a Google search. There are many, many, so take the pick. I'll refer you back to the black slide. I'm going to go back through the slides here, Tanya, just to go through as we're doing this, if everyone can see this. At the moment, the symptoms are the same. Now, when we're in the allopathic world, we try and fight a disease, SARS, MERS, COVID, Zika, Ebola, call it what you want. As homeopaths, what we look at is the person has a condition. So let's heal the person, let's restore their healing power back to themselves so they can fight any kind of disease. So that's the approach that we take as homeopaths. So if we look at this now, we have the main symptoms that people present with. So that tells us that the body is manifesting this disease in this way. The scientist and the pathologist will look at all the chemical pathways inside the body. The patient just says, I can't breathe, I'm scared, my breathing is difficult, I have a fever, please help me. They don't care what it's called. So let's deal with that first. So, but at the same time, all the scientists and all the labs have written all their papers. You can easily do a Google search on that. Thank you.
Cool. We have another one. A doctor friend informed me it is useless taking vitamin C as the body requires it for at least 6 months to actually take effect.
Okay. Well, thank you, doctor, for that. We must remember that our doctors from the allopathic world, they don't study nutrition on their medical degrees. Talk to a dietitian, talk to a naturopath, talk to a nutritionist, talk to a herbalist, talk to a homeopath, Ayurvedic, Chinese medicine. There's about another 10 different systems of medicine who will all beg to differ. So don't just take my word for it. Research it yourself. Vitamin C, because it's water soluble, it's needed constantly in the body. When the body needs something constantly, it means it has an immediate need for it. Things like vitamins A, D, and E, which are fat soluble, the body can store. It doesn't need it all the time. So when we need something all day, every day, our body tells us itself it's needed right here, right now. So that's what vitamin C does. It's an antioxidant. It mops up free radicals. It forms part of collagen and hyaluronic acid, which helps to create the outer layer of our skin. It forms collagen inside our bones, keeping us supple, strong, vertebrates. It forms the lining of the epithelial cells in our respiratory tract. That's how important vitamin C is. And if you want to research on it, there's thousands of articles on the web about vitamin C and zinc. So one of the things I always say to my patients is, who do you listen to? If you're going to listen to someone about vitamins and minerals, make sure they're qualified to talk about them. If you want to listen to about medicines, then talk to your doctor by all means. That's their qualification. So I would refer you, say, take the advice from the people who have studied it at length. Don't even take my word for it. You can research it yourself as well. But it's good that you're asking. It means you're interested. Thank you.
Kiara's asked, what are your views on the usefulness of iodine inhalation or otherwise for treatment of CV-19?
Right, okay. My thoughts on the use of iodine. There are some people that talk about it at the moment. You don't need to inhale iodine. Iodine is available naturally in natural salt. And all our homeopaths from the College of Practical Homeopathy will recommend things like Himalayan salt or Himalayan sole if you're from the Caribbean or from the African continent. Sea salt, rock salt, Himalayan salt has naturally balanced iodine inside us, in it. So when we inhale it, when we ingest it, it will go into our cells. So we don't need to take inhalation protocols, just take some regular sea salt in your diet every day. Your body will take what it needs. It's a trace element, so we don't need to overdose with it either. If we take too high levels of iodine, it can upset our thyroid gland. So it's something I wouldn't recommend people go out and just pump into their body. Take it naturally in your salt, in your water. The body will use what it needs and discard the rest. But thank you for asking.
As the disease appears to be relatively harmless, why the big isolation?
Okay, what an excellent question. You're absolutely right. I'm so glad that someone actually thinks it's relatively harmless, which it is. Remember back to the slides. Let me just go back to here. If we look down the 2 bullet points there, 80% of people recover spontaneously because the immune system kicks in, does what it needs to do, and we heal, and we don't even know we've had anything. We've just had a bit of a sniffle or a cough or a cold, unwell, and we're fine. The 1 to 14 days, as we said, it's the time taken to replicate. Now let's just go back to this slide where we've got the mechanism of replication. The body is fighting it as soon as we get infected, okay? So the minute these little proteins that hang around the outside of the virus enter our body, it triggers off our immune system and we start to attack it. Some viruses will get absorbed by our cell and go into the cell. Once they're inside our cell, they'll hijack our DNA and make it to pump out viral cells. When that battle goes on, When we're winning, we don't even know we've had the virus. When the virus is winning, it will ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, what they call an incubation period, because it has to reach critical mass in the body for the body to think, oh, heck, I'm unwell, and for the symptoms to manifest. So the incubation period is within 1 to 2 weeks, we will know if anything's happened. If it hasn't, our body's dealt with it, carry on. But if it has, we will know we're unwell. So that's the reason the government has said, have this timeline. Some people have a quicker period of replication and they're fine within 2 days. Some people are unwell for quite a long period of time based on our own ability to heal inside. Very good question. Thank you. Hope that's answered it.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mic. Some people have asked how they can get hold of a copy of the webinar slides. In about 2 or 3 days' time, we will send out a copy of the webinar, the recording of the webinar, and Som's accompanying slides. So just give us a few days, and everybody that's registered on this webinar, that's attended the webinar, and those who haven't will get a copy of it. So I hope that answers that. So would you recommend taking 30C arsenicum album daily for those displaying fear?
Okay. Now, without knowing your personal circumstances, now I'm going to answer that. So I'm not answering you, but I'll answer you in a moment. Homeopathy is a system of medicine which is very patient specific. So depending on a person's individual circumstances, we don't know how well they are, how ill they are, if they're immunocompromised. So in that respect, arsenicum is absolutely the wrong remedy to take because there might be an underlying cause that's making them unwell or making them more susceptible. If somebody is displaying what we call the genus epidemicus, the key symptoms, it might fit. If someone has the fear, it's something that people can take themselves should they wish, or under the guidance of a homeopath. If people come to me, I have recommended it to many, many patients. But I've also recommended other remedies like gelsemium, bryonia, perf, and amongst other things, aconite for shock and horror. There's so many different things. We are going to refer you to the Ayush, the Indian government stance on this. We also have on our College of Practical Homeopathy website, we released a press release a few days ago on our views on COVID-19 and some suggested remedies. So there will be a link posted up for you for that. Please read that, and that might guide you to it. If you want to discuss it further, look onto our team and contact any of our team. My email is on at the end of here, or you can just email us direct at the CPH, and we can talk to you further and help you towards that. It is definitely a remedy that I've used many, many times in this. Would I recommend it to you without knowing you? No. Is it something you can use? Should you read further and it suits you? Absolutely. I hope that answers that question.
For those that are asking questions, if you could just put them in the Q&A section, because I can't quite keep up with everybody asking questions in the chat. Because on the Q&A, I can go through them each one systematically. Yes, we do regular, Felicia, we do regular webinars. We've done quite a few lately. If you'd like to see some of them, I have dropped in the email address that you can email, and the lovely Cam will email you over some of our previous links. I hope that answered your question. We hear nothing about Russia. Any report cases there?
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm going to refer you back to this website again called worldmeters.info. You can have a look there if you're interested. What I would say, let's not be country specific. This is what genus epidemicus is about. If we have a virus, humans are humans. If we have the similar kind of symptoms wherever we are, we can look at that. If you are very country specific, you can Google it and find it yourself. I'm not a news reporter. I'm a medical professional, so I wouldn't have that data. So sorry, I can't answer that question directly.
We seem to be having a lot of questions coming through about, pregnant women and prophylactics and things like that. I think we wouldn't be able to answer everybody's specific symptoms for each specific person. I mean, Som, I know you could probably say, specific remedies for just group general for this
Yeah.
pandemic, but I would guide everybody, and I'll drop a link. We have a clinic, and if anybody is suffering and would like to actually get hold of one of our homeopaths, you can actually chat to one of our students. We have a clinic in London, and I'm sure they also do some web consultations as well. I've just dropped the link in there.
Tanya, if I may just add to that,
yeah.
It's just to reassure everybody who may not be a homeopath. Homeopathy is perfectly safe for pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children. It doesn't have any side effects, and in the 350-odd year history of homeopathy, nobody's died yet. So please be reassured that it's one of the safest, cleanest, most effective forms of medicine you can use. For people who are worried about their families, we do have a home prescriber course, so you don't have to be a qualified homeopath to practice, but you can learn about homeopathy and how it can help you and your loved ones. We have a short course there that involves a tutorial as well with either myself or Ellen, one of the tutors.
Oh, I've lost you there for a minute, Som.
Sorry, I'll say that again. So I'll just refer us to that. At the college, we do a home prescriber course, which enables people who are concerned for their loved ones and their families to learn a little bit about homeopathy, to be able to handle everyday acute illnesses. And if that develops your taste for homeopathy, you may wish to learn further when we have courses. But rest assured, it's perfectly safe. And in the history, not one person has died from taking a homeopathic medicine. So we're very proud of that fact. On top of that,
yeah, sorry, I've just dropped in a link as you've been chatting, Som, for a link to our short courses. We've got a bundle offer on at the moment as well.
Yes.
So
okay, thank you for that.
Sure, so many questions. We're not going to manage to get through all of them, but we will try. Are there any specific remedies that have worked well on the elderly? Anything preventative? I think
Okay,
maybe again back to...
I can answer that directly. Let me share with you something very personal. My mother has just literally today arrived back. She should be arriving as we're talking, from California. She's elderly, she's 74, going to be 75. She's suffering from severe breathing and breathlessness. She's a heart patient. And I did give her our Senicum album to take with her to this trip that she had for the last 12 days, because she's fearful, she's worried, she's away from home in another country, there's no NHS for her. And she did that, and she's going well, and she's just landed back in the UK. So prophylactically, I did exactly give her that, because her personality is that of a person who is quite often fearful. And this is what I'm saying. We have to look at the patient before we just give a remedy. But have I given it? Absolutely. And the Old Testament that we used to say to doctors is, would you give it to your own mother? Yes, I did. And God, thank God she's still alive. Hopefully that answers your question.
Interesting one here. What is your view on colloidal silver, how to use it, and dosage?
Okay. Now, colloidal silver is another ancient remedy. But now, what colloidal silver does? It has very many uses, and anecdotally from history, it's been used quite well as an antifungal, antiviral, etc. But it's a metal, and when you're taking it, even though it's 1 part per 10 million in the colloidal silver that you take, or 100 million, it's still in what we call crude form. And when we have anything in crude form that the body don't know how to handle, it can build up toxicity levels. When we have colloidal silver, don't forget, it's taken in solution, which is what is ground down and diluted, but it's in solution. Our kidneys ultimately have to filter this out. So if anyone who's got kidney disease, chronic kidney disease, or kidney failure, or any kind of renal issue whatsoever, I would not recommend it at all, because it's putting a burden on the glomerulus and the filtration of the kidneys, because it's in crude form. Again, we're going to have to talk about homeopathy. Homeopathy doesn't have elements or minerals in crude form, but the energetic value of them that helps the body heal. So would I use it without knowing someone's history? Not at all. When I know there's far safer, cleaner, less invasive alternatives. Does it work? Yes. But would I use it in my practice? No. Thank you.
I've got 2 people asking, any specific remedies for pregnant women worried about the virus, specifically early pregnancy?
Okay, well, there would be, but I wouldn't do it on this open forum here. As Tanya said, please contact anyone of either at our student clinic or any one of us through our website, and we'll answer that specifically to yourself. You've got our emails here. You can email us and we can pick that up with you. We were talking, Tanya, myself, and Ellen, only a few days ago that we are going to run a pregnancy women and childhood illnesses webinar as part of the series. So please do stay tuned for that. And if you're in your first trimester and extra worried, there are absolutely things we can recommend. Would I do it now? No, because the reason being, we have a mixed audience from around the world, and we wouldn't want people to take the information out of context. Can we recommend it? Yes, we can. We will do that offline. Thank you.
Are you using homotoxicology protocols?
No, we don't use protocols because homeopathy is very tailored medicine to the specific individual based on their individual circumstances, ability to heal, and also what we call obstacle to cure. They may be on other medication. And when we take allopathic drugs, the body will show signs and symptoms and have what we call side effects that will not enable them to heal properly. So we have to deal with that sometimes first. So a protocol without looking at the person is going in blind. We don't do things blind in homeopathy. So we can devise our own protocols, and we do have them, but based on very specific criteria. So would we just follow someone else's? No, that's not what homeopathy is about. It's very, very tailored to the individual. It's what we call obstacle to cure or a maintaining course. For example, if I want to treat my liver and I have a liver condition, but I'm an alcoholic and I smoke cigarettes, that's my obstacle to cure. So first I have to deal with that, because if I take my medicine, that will block it. So without knowing someone's individual circumstances, we wouldn't just give panacea that way. Thank you very much.
Somebody's asking us, are we staying open during the situation? As far as I know, we are. We haven't closed the clinic or anything down yet, have we, Som?
No, not at all.
Okay, cool.
We work on our immune systems, and and that should give us. But at the same time, we have the confidence to know that we have homeopathic remedies to absolutely help us. 200-year history and the success of the 1% mortality rate with the Spanish flu gives us a great platform to really, really show off, and we're very proud of that as a homeopathic community. So have all the confidence that you're at the right place at times like this. Thank you very much.
Somebody's asking, is it better to eat raw garlic or cooked garlic to strengthen the immune system? How much would you recommend daily, raw or cooked?
Okay, very, very good question. Now, I'm a British-born Indian, so I have a lot in my curries and my natural dishes. And if you're European or African, you might use them elsewhere. And if you're Oriental, etc. So I would say just get it in you. There isn't a set amount, because as we know, one thing on the homeopathic side, it's not about the dosage, unless you're taking things in crude form. Garlic actually has a way, it has things inside the chemicals, and then this is a whole nutrition course that we also provide at the CPH, and we won't get into it right now. But once you ingest it, it releases little chemicals that actually can enter your cells and stimulate the immune system. And when the immune system's stimulated, other cells will do it too. So that wouldn't be dose dependent in the terms of garlic. I've seen people get great success with a clove of garlic. If you're really concerned, you can easily just from Amazon or any online supply buy garlic capsules. And the garlic oil capsules benefit is once you ingest them, it doesn't make your breath stink. So I wouldn't worry about the dose. If you really want me to put my hand on something, I'll say take a clove of garlic a day in 2 halves, morning and night, and that will see you right.
My gran used to have a clove of garlic every day, every morning, and she lived to the ripe old age of 95. So there we go.
Thank you for just backing up what we said. Lovely, brilliant.
A few people have asked something in different ways. Some people are asking, it said the virus will disappear over summer, and others have asked, are warmer countries less affected by the virus? So in general, do we think it's going to be, less people are going to be infected and the virus will calm down as it gets warmer?
Okay, well, very good question. If we remember back to what a virus is, I'm just going to slide the slides at the same time. A virus is a bit of DNA. Think of it as a wire or a chemical message, if you look at that. So it can't live without a host. That doesn't mean it dies away. What it means is, without being an animal, a plant, or a human, it cannot replicate. Its only job is to replicate, but Mother Nature has designed it with the proteins on the outside that we can also attack it and get rid of it and build up our immunity. Once our immunity is built up, it no longer affects us. There's hundreds and billions of viruses around all the time. They're constantly entering us through various orifices and through the skin and everything. Do they affect us? No, because we have the immunity. Every once in a while, a virus comes like this, of which the general population do not have an immunity, and it's called a pandemic in one country or an epidemic if it's globally. That's fine. But because of that, they're not really affected by temperature. You can burn them, you may not kill them. You can freeze them, you may not kill them, which is why we had this news last week about virus being transmitted in ice cubes in pubs and bars and restaurants. That's fine. It will just sit there and do nothing until it's ingested. It cannot work without a host cell's DNA. Okay, so that is what it does. Now, someone somewhere is going to say, well, if we can't burn it, why do we get a fever? Good. So I'll answer that before it's asked. We get a fever because that's our body's inflammatory response to an invading body, to a foreign body, a bacteria, a viral, or fungi. So that is how one of our ways in which our body responds. So our body triggers off heat, temperature, macrophages, B cells, T cells, killer cells, and a host of other things, the immunoglobulins, to attack it from a number of ways. So would we worry about different countries? No. And if you do question that further, I'll refer you back to this and remind you that the Zika virus here originated in Brazil. Now, Brazil's a warm country. Swine flu originated in Mexico, another hot country. So that tells us the viruses are not climate specific. Hopefully that answers it. We don't know any more about this one because the epidemiologists do not have enough data to give us just yet. Hope that answers that. Thank you.
Can we take several different remedies of 30C at once? Example, like arsenicum, Rostox, or Ruta, in both coldness and muscle aches, if coldness and muscle aches are occurring?
Okay, very good question. Now this is where CPH stands alone as one of the few in the world that teach a particular form of homeopathy, what we call practical homeopathy. Classical homeopathy will put all the symptoms and come out with one remedy as a panacea for everything. In practical homeopathy, we are very happy, and often we do indeed mix remedies when the symptoms require it. So can you? Yes, if you know what you're doing. If you don't, speak to your homeopath and ask them. And if you're a homeopath who's classically trained and would like to know, please get in touch. But do we recommend it? We use it as a tool where we need to. So yes, if you want to do that and you think you need to do it, if your symptoms match, please go ahead. Thank you very much.
Last few questions. I've heard that anise barb as a possible preventative remedy. Would you agree?
Okay, very good question. I think in the continent it's called anise barb. In the US and the UK we call it acylcocainum. So acylcocainum is an influenza type remedy that will help combat influenza type symptoms. So would I recommend it? Depending on the case. Have I used it? Very, very often. And oftentimes in CPH, we'll use it in combination with influenzainum as well, depending on the case. So very good question. I'm assuming that person's from Europe to ask that question. So, you know, in Europe, it's widely used. I just want to say a comment on this, on the question. The brilliant question that you're asking, ladies and gentlemen, we always say that at CPH, we say, please prescribe with confidence. Choose your remedies, know they work, know they won't give side effects, and have confidence in it. When you do that, you're going to help your people feel better. Because one of the things with the panic, it induces stress. When we introduce stress, it induces our stress hormones, our immune system goes down, our susceptibility goes up. So we have a professional duty to help reassure our patients anyway. A very, very good question. Thank you very much.
Okay. If we take homeopathic version of vitamin C, will this help?
Yes, it can do. Have I given it? I've given it quite a few times to very, very old, debilitated and frail patients who cannot ingest it in physical form. Because as vitamin C is water soluble, again, if someone has acute kidney disease or stage 4 kidney disease or is on dialysis, then we have to find another way to give it. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, these are tools for us. Where we can take crude matter, we do. Vitamin C is found very abundantly in all the vegetables and fruits available. People automatically think of oranges. Broccoli has 10 times the vitamin C of an orange. So whatever your preference, get it in your body. Can you take it? Yes. If you can't, can you give it homeopathically? Absolutely. Thank you very much.
can we take Arsenicum album prophylactically?
I'm going to say yes, you can, but don't say I told you to. And we've got a recording to back me up on this. We will send a link out. We have your email addresses. And I'm going to refer you to our guidance on our website on COVID. We launched this last week, released it. And we'll refer you to the Indian government's Ayush statement as well. And there are many countries doing exactly that. But what I would caution you is, yes, you can take it, but take it after speaking to your local homeopath or talk to one of us. Thank you.
I've dropped a link into the chat below for those who wanted a link to that article that Som's just
Thank you.
referenced. Right. Turmeric with ginger and cinnamon boiled together. Drink it after boiling. Does that help?
Yes. I'm Indian. We do that all the time. We call it Indian tea. And if you go to Starbucks, they do a very weakened version called chai tea latte. So make it at home, boil it for a bit. It's a lovely, strong concoction. Have it how you want to. Put some brown sugar and honey, and you're good to go. It's an old, anecdotal 7,000-year-old remedy, and it works.
I think this is going to probably be the last one because then it's 9 o'clock. Sorry, folks. If you've got any more questions, you're going to just have to. I've dropped the email on there, and you could just email us any more questions. Do you always start with 30C doses? How do you know when to move or use 200C potencies?
Okay, very good question. You'll have to go onto our courses to learn that.
Yeah,
This is
I
a
think
webinar.
that's it's quite a lot. It's difficult
Very
to
good
explain
question.
there quickly.
Tanya, just a thought for you, actually, for our audience as well. Please keep the questions coming, because then maybe Tanya and myself will have a think about maybe doing an FAQ section and posting that later with the questions that we're unable to answer right now. Yeah.
So somebody has just asked, do you teach CPH online? Yes, we do. It is predominantly taught online. We also have virtual tutors. So Som is a tutor, and we have a few other tutors as well. And it is not just in practice, but we do have a clinic in London if you are in London and you wanted to practice in London. But we also teach you how to do online consultations as well. So yeah, I hope that answers that.
So can I just add to that, Tanya? We also encourage, we have global students all around the world. We ask them to take cases early on. When they learn with us, we ask them to take them in the first year. You don't have to wait 2 or 3 years because you have the supervision of a qualified homeopath guiding you. So we actively encourage that. And with social media now, with WhatsApp and Skype, we can do our virtual consultations with you and tutorials, so you never feel alone. So do inquire if you're interested, and we'll be happy to talk to you further.
And somebody's just asked if you're one of the tutors. Yes, Som is one of the tutors. All right, folks, that concludes our evening. If you do have any questions, I have dropped a link down there. If you want to re-watch this, all you need to do is just follow the link that you use to register, and it'll take you back into this recording, and all my scribbles will be in the message section, and you can just, if you've missed anything, otherwise just email us or go to the Practical College website, the cph.co.uk, and you'll see our contact us button there, and yeah, you can get all the help you need there. Thank you very much. Thanks, Som, and good night. Stay safe.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye-bye.